Sono Tornato, or Italian for I'm Back, is the Italian version of the German movie Look Who's Back, which is based on the novel of the same name. In the movie Look Who's Back, which I previously done a review on, it says what would happen if Adolf Hitler came back to Germany in the modern day, having somehow survived his death in 1945 and being transported to the present. And in the original movie, we had Hitler get a TV show. He became a media celebrity. Everybody thought he was just a comedian, but eventually he begins to return to power. And this is more or less the same thing. It's very similar to the German version of the movie. Even some of the lines are the same. Like at the end, where the soy boy journalist figures out that he actually is Mussolini. He says, "I never pretended to be anything else," which is the same as basically what Hitler said, and a number of other things. Just scenes in the movie are more or less the same. That being said, because this movie is Italian instead of German, and Mussolini's a much less controversial figure, if you can say that, than Hitler is, I think the film's a lot more sympathetic to Mussolini than it was to Hitler. So the movie's kind of a mixture of docudrama and the actual plot. So like most of the scenes I think are scripted, but whenever they show them interacting with just average Italians, that's unscripted. And by and large, the average Italians are like throwing up Roman salutes. They're like, yeah, bring back fascism and stuff like that, which is more or less what I'd expect from Italy. So maybe let's just take a step back and let's just go through the film's plot. So there's this soy boy journalist, Andre Canaletti, who's making some like crappy documentary about refugees, and he's trying to get them to pretend that they're starving and stuff. And this is going to be his big break into Italian TV, or at least into international television, producing and releasing this. So that's kind of part one to the whole thing. And while he's filming, Mussolini falls from the sky. There's some gate in Rome that's said to link the living and the dead. And he doesn't recognize this immediately, but he goes to the TV station where he's working. Or I think he was like an unpaid intern or something, but they have no interest in his crappy documentary about the refugee crisis. However, he does see Mussolini in the background. So, as in Look Who's Back, Mussolini immediately takes. He gets kind of taken in briefly by two guys who run a newsstand, and they're gay. And Mussolini states that he would have exiled them to one of the islands off the coast of Italy, and that wouldn't have been tolerated under his regime. It's kind of funny, like, because when he's walking around Rome earlier in the movie, he's like, "Am I in Addis Ababa, or however you pronounce the capital of Italy?" And he's like, "Did the Abyssinians counter invade us?" And he spends a lot of the movie complaining about people like Italy being full of non-Italians and stuff like that. Like I think a couple times he's like, "It's an actual they're actual Italians," and whenever he talks to like the Italians about it, like in the unscripted parts, they're like, "Yeah, Italy for the Italians," and stuff like that. I find Italians are just a lot more open about these things than like Germans are. They don't really have anywhere near the same amount of war guilt. It might just be come from being a Mediterranean people and being a lower trust society than Germany is. So Mussolini meets up with Canaletti, who thinks that he's a comedic actor. So his plan is he's going to take Mussolini across the country and film the videos and put them up on YouTube as part of a comedy series. There's a funny one where Mussolini goes back to the presidential palace or wherever it was he stayed while he was ruler of Italy, and there's like this big pot on a like pedestal outside of it, and he like starts tipping it over, and you think he's gonna smash it in anger, but there's like a key under it. The key works. So he just walks in, and there's like a funny scene where a bunch of school kids find him sleeping in his old bed, as the it's a museum. So that's pretty funny. So he goes across Italy, and we got a lot of hijinks in that. But like I said, most of the Italians were just like, okay, we want a dictatorship, but not too dictatorial a dictatorship. We need an authoritarian government, but not too authoritarian. And a lot of people just like throw up Roman salutes and stuff. And people generally seem to like him. They have him go to like whatever the neo-fascist party headquarters is, and they just I think they're just like ex-German. I think they're just German expatriates, like pretending to be Italians or something. So they obviously get pissed off because they think that he's making fun of them because they are. But that doesn't go that well. So they're just going across the country, and a dog gets into a dog attacks Mussolini. So he shoots the dog. So we literally have a shoot the shaggy dog thing, and so they drive away. So Mussolini basically is going viral at this point, getting a bunch of views on YouTube. Uh, Canaletti goes back to My TV, which he was fired from, and there's a new female producer there, and she immediately says sees potential, so she gives Mussolini his own talk show. Him running his own show is pretty funny, but it's an immediate like massive hit. The ratings go through the roof. I think it becomes like the biggest TV show in all of Italy. Um, Canaletti gets his job back. There's a girl that he's interested in, and he's sucking at it 'cause he's a soy boy. So like Mussolini takes his cell phone and he texts her, and his machismo wins her over. And then he's trying to like teach Canaletti how to be a Chad and to not be a pussy, and that was pretty funny. So the show starts to go really well. They're making a lot of money. Now the second in command to the woman who took over My TV. Actually, it's funny because like at the meetings they sing like some of like the fascist songs from World War II, and there's one member of the group of the executives who's a member of the tribe, and she delivers a big speech screaming about how we can't allow people with opinions we disagree with to be able to talk on television, unsurprisingly. Yeah, I was saying the second in command of the director of the executive who produces the show finds the footage of the him shooting the dog, and they play that on air, and that destroys the careers of Mussolini, Canaletti, and the female executive. So they briefly move in with the family of the girlfriend of Canaletti. So it turns out that she's at least half Jewish, maybe a quarter Jewish, and the grandmother who has Alzheimer's goes into this big rant about the it's not the 6 million or the 11 million, it's like the 1300 or something from like something in Rome. She's like, remember the 1300, and that goes on for a couple of minutes, and then they get kicked out, and Mussolini's like, look, I know that she's Jewish, but she's only like a quarter Jewish. You can bleach that, and your kids will be Italian. So Canaletti just says like that he's a piece of shit and kicks him out. So Mussolini goes to sleep in a park, and he's attacked by a group of animal rights. Um, I think it's like they're like neo-fascists wearing animal rights stuff, and there was like some other thing that they had. So like he gets attacked by them in a park. I think they record it, and it turns out that the attack was orchestrated by the female TV executive who got fired from the one channel and went to another one. So this generates sympathy, and Mussolini gets his show back. She manages to get the woman whose dog Mussolini shot to come on air and publicly forgive him. Mussolini like apologizes, and he gives this big speech about how they will build a kennel for stray dogs together as a nation, which is pretty funny. Canaletти is looking back at the footage and he realizes that Mussolini is actually Mussolini. So he breaks in with Mussolini's gun that he confiscated earlier, and he threatens to shoot Mussolini. And Mussolini's like to kind of take some word. They take some words from like the look who's back, and he's like, "You can't destroy me. You destroy part of yourself and part of the nation, and you're a pussy, so you're not gonna shoot me." And Canaletti's like, "To kill you would be to just become like you, because when you kill your enemies, they win." So he gets taken away. The dog owner pardons him, and the film ends with him and the TV executive driving around Rome in an open top vehicle, with the implication being that Mussolini will soon regain his power and bring Italy back to the doctrine of fascism. So, what can I say about the movie? I thought it was really good. I haven't watched too many Mussolini speeches or things just because it's in Italian, and I wouldn't really understand them. But how do you pronounce his name? Massimo Papalizio, whatever his name is, I think does a really good job as Mussolini. He definitely looks a lot like Mussolini. I think he's got the mannerisms I'm aware of down. It's kind of, I don't know like what this was supposed to be. Like whether this was supposed to be so it's they aren't even like really critical of any of his ideas. Like what he gets in trouble for isn't like saying we need to expel immigrants or deal with like the pink mafia or any of that stuff. What they get mad at him for is shooting a dog, which I think is pretty funny. From my understanding, I was just looking at the Wikipedia page because we all know how accurate those are, and it was released before the election to try to impact the vote. I think more though, it does kind of present the idea that Italy wants a strong man. They want Mussolini back. They don't want to keep going with the government that's had dozens of different prime ministers over the last the end of World War II. Italy's more or less been a complete political disaster since from the end of the fascist era on. In fact, if you look at Italy, it was a political disaster prior to Mussolini taking power, and it was a political disaster after him leaving power. Really, the only time Italy enjoyed stable government since its creation, as far as I can tell, was when Mussolini was in power. As I've said in the past, I think an ideology like fascism really fits a country like Italy more than something like National Socialism fits Germany. And I've said this in other videos, but Italians tend to be more laid back and more low trust and kind of harder to get to do things, like collectively as a society, than Germans do. Germans or Scandinavians or whatever will just do what you tell them to do, and they'll do it 100%, and they'll try to become more efficient at it. Italians don't really work the same way. They're kind of a lot more laid back. They're a lot more kind of local and stuff like that. So even though like obviously Mussolini's government was a dictatorship, there wasn't really that much state terrorism. They sometimes exiled political opponents to like small towns in southern Italy, which honestly literally does kind of sound like a vacation. They smashed some printing presses and occasionally broke some people's legs. But generally speaking, I think there's only something like 9 people who were officially executed for political reasons during Mussolini's like entire time in office. From my understanding, that's kind of how Spain also ran under Franco. Is While it was obviously a dictatorship, the government was not particularly oppressive. so long as people stayed within the lines. Like I don't think there was really that much in the way of secret police. There wasn't that much in the way of public examples, the kind of stuff you saw more in Nazi Germany or in Soviet Russia or kind of in some other states. So I think it did function. The fact that they were able to destroy most of the mafia, and like I said, end the political chaos and the deadlock, and kind of bring Italy a stable, fairly pragmatic form of government, I think says a lot. And who knows? Looking at the upcoming election, it's quite possible that a coalition of Liga and the Brothers of Italy may be able to form government. So you do have the descendant of the Italian social movement, which is, I believe, what Brothers of Italy is, and you have the Liga Nord, or I guess it's just Liga now since they win seats outside of northern Italy, which are kind of the two right wing nationalist populist parties. So who knows? I doubt that Italy is going to become a dictatorship again anytime soon, although fingers crossed. However, when they gain power, we might see something like some gerrymandering or changes to the electoral system, or they'll be able to kind of resolve some of Italy's big problems like immigration, and that'll just kind of lead to a generation of um, kind of further right governments in power. Because I don't think like fascism or machismo or any of these kind of like right wing populist things have ever been as unpopular in Italy or as taboo as they have been in somewhere like Germany, for instance. I mean, there's always been an Italian social movement. I don't think it was ever particularly large, but I think fascism left a lot more of a long term political impact on Italy in terms of shifting politics to the right than National Socialism did in Germany, where it shifted politics, I think, to the left and basically made nationalism like a no go. And even today, when we start having nationalist parties like the AFD, they are considered extremely fringe, even though they like aren't that radical as far as I can determine. So that's the review. I hope you enjoyed it. God bless, and lots more video content to come.